Welcome to Bits of History. My name is Lee Pulaski, President of the Resurrection Bay Historical Society. Today's bit of history is from the Seward Gateway of May 3, 1927, and tells the story of the initial clearing of land for the establishment of the current city cemetery. The headline: Citizens turn out in large numbers to observe Memorial Day by clearing and dedicating new cemetery grounds. The article: Advancing like a well-trained army of conquest with the untamed wilderness as the enemy, the citizens of Seward yesterday combined the observance of Memorial Day with clearing an acre or more of ground for a cemetery. The scene of the battle was just north of the Jesse Lee home, and when the final mopping up was completed, a marked change had been wrought in the landscape. The bugle was sounded to 0 hour at 8 o'clock a.m. when the first line of shock troops went into action, to be followed at short intervals by fresh forces until by noon the general engagement was well underway. By 5 o'clock, the conquering army was ready to cease firing and return to the city. Out in the roadway sat the heavy artillery in the shape of a Ford combination tractor and donkey, supported by teams of heavy, sleek horses. From the Ford, a cable passed through a sheave wheel attached high up in a spruce tree, and led to where the infantrymen were fast mowing down the enemy in the form of trees and cutting them into logs. The wonderful little machine dragged the logs into a pile, standing them on end, and in the process tearing a pathway through the underbrush. Here and there a group of dapper officers of the Signal Corps, uniformed in overalls and not afraid to bend their back in the labor at hand. There was a detachment of mechanics and professional men also engaged. Over where the battle was thickest, a group of grizzled sourdoughs who in years ago had battled their way through just such a wilderness and blazing a way that others might follow, bent to the task with a zest. With axes, crosscut saws, mat axes, and peavies as weapons, the infantry carried on with the mopping up process. The worker cries, "Water!" A Boy Scout with a pail of crystal water, only to be found in Alaska, dashed up. The Boy Scouts and the Gopher Brigade were there, here, everywhere, working like beavers. As a force of habit in laying down a smoke screen and barrage to drive the enemy into his dugout and confuse him, someone lit a pile of brush. The result was the starting of what threatened to become a forest fire. The smoke was so dense that it might have been a gas attack. The army executed a flank movement to the east, and for an hour it was anybody's fight. While the men trenched and checked the advance of the most stubborn blaze, the Gophers proved real soldiers. With caps, sweaters, and coats laden with moist earth, the kiddos crept beneath the smoke and smothered the flames from behind. It was like bombing a machine gun nest, and the kiddos won. From the headquarters of the Women's Relief Corps, behind the firing line, came the call, "Lunch!" The order to cease firing brought the victorious army from the field to line up before the tent, where the ladies handed out delicious sandwiches, cakes, and coffee to the hungry, and there were some man-sized appetites. In front of the tent, a large American flag swung gently in the breeze as the colors were displayed. Following lunch, the ceremonies of the day were begun. First, the Seward Band rendered several selections. Post Commander Clyde R. Ellis read a statement of the aims and purposes of the American Legion. Later, after which Reverend Thomas R. Graham led in prayer, followed by singing of the Battle Hymn of the Republic by the children of the Jesse Lee home. After a selection by the band, Mayor L.V. Ray delivered a short address apropos of the day, and the dedication of the new cemetery was made by Mr. Ellis, followed by a benediction by Reverend Charles T. Hatton. The band then rendered other selections, after which the people returned to Seward. An appreciable area was cleared for a cemetery, and a greater portion of the driveway leading thereto was gravelled. Thank you for listening to this bit of history. On Monday, June 21, the Historical Society will be conducting its annual Summer Solstice Cemetery Tour at 10:30 p.m. Yes, p.m. It is the summer solstice after all. The tour, weather permitting, will start at the American Legion section of the cemetery, and will tell the stories of some of the famous and not so famous Sewardites buried in the cemetery, as recorded in the obituaries published at the time of their death. Plan to attend and learn more about Seward's history.